My name is Satya Chaudhary and today we'll be talking about the decisions that we make in our life. Now you must be facing quite a number of decisions as you are in class 9th now, and you are the most pertinent decision that you have to make nowadays will be your career, your choice of your line that you will be taking in class 11th, and then what kind of a job or what kind of a career path you want to have for yourself. So for you people, this is the most pertinent and important question as of now, right? So today we'll be talking about one of your poems from class 9th, another poem from the field of romanticism, having the undercurrent of romanticism, featuring life, featuring nature, and basically focusing on the decisions that we take. And it is these decisions that makes a man who he really is. So we'll be talking about the most cliched poem, that is The Road Not Taken by Robert Lee Frost. This poem is again falls into the ambit of romantic or romanticism literature, and in Hindi we call it Chayavad or Prakritvad. Chayavad is basically another that is the new romantic literature that we had in India in Hindi, and romanticism started with William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge. Those were the pioneers in the field of romanticism, and same was Robert Lee Frost. So we had taken up some poems in class 10th which were Fire and Ice. We had also taken Dust of Snow. These two poems were again by Robert Lee Frost, and here we are with another poem of Robert Lee Frost from class 9 in CERT. So let's start with the poem. Before we start, let's recap of all the decisions that you have taken in your life. It is just a binary choice that you have, or it may be a multiple choice that you have in your life. But are these decisions that important? Let's talk about those important decisions first. Suppose you are getting a job. A few years down the line, you have two possibilities to go into some career, and then you have another possibility of going into some different line. Then the only difference between these two lines is one is a highly paying job which you somewhat like and you are indifferent towards it somehow, and the second job is of your interest. It falls into your ambit of hobbies and you like doing it, but it does not pay that much. So we have already seen Three Idiots, right? So when Farhan is going to be an engineer, and when he is pushed to be an engineer, on the other hand he wants to be a photographer, wildlife photographer. So that is what he has that choice he has made down the line. So but then he corrected that particular choice. So in most of the cases we are faced with some very serious or very dire choices which we have to make, which may alter or change the course of our lives, right? So let's start with our poem. In this particular poem, imagery is used as a very potent tool. Now imagery is what again I dealt in great detail in my previous videos as well. When the persona, the poet or any author in any written text, he or she utilizes the words to create a mental image or a mental picture in your head through those words, that is called imagery. Same is happening over here. As you can see an image on my board over here. We have a path, we have a road, and it's a forest area, and that particular road is bifurcating into two small paths. So now the persona or the poet has two choices, either to go left or to go right. So that is the choice he has to make. So this is an extended metaphor that he has used in the poem. The metaphor of path, the metaphor of the fork. This is called a fork. You know how a fork is? You have eaten with a fork, yes? So this is a fork. The road is bifurcating into two parts, and he has a choice whether to take the left one or the right one. So this is the extended metaphor over here. On the other hand, the fork is again a metaphor for the choice that he is making. Okay, let's start with the poem. Two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. This particular paragraph has a very strong rhyming scheme, and to talk about rhyming scheme, we have to take the last sound word. I'm talking about sound word, not the letter. D is the letter. Wood is the sound word. Wood. If we remove the last syllable, if the first syllable of the last word, we'll get wood. Wood, oath, wood, wood, and oath. Right? So we have the rhyming scheme. So you label it as A, wood, both, B, stood, again A, good, again A, and then growth is matching with both. So again B. So A, B, A, B. This is the most potent rhyming scheme, most beautiful rhyming scheme in one of the poems that I have read. So in this particular first paragraph, the opening verse of this particular poem, the poet is talking about a path in the jungle, in the woods, in the forest, and he is the traveler. And yellow wood is again the forest over here. So yellow signifies the change in the weather. So this is you can see the leaves, they change their color in autumn season, and yellow color signifies change, right? We have Basant Panchami during spring season, right? That again signifies what? That signifies change. The wheat grains, the crops that are standing there in the fields right now, they're changing their color from green to yellow. So yellow is a symbol of change. So that is why he has used this particular yellow wood as a metaphor for change as well. So here the poet is using this particular imagery to depict a deep metaphorical meaning for the choices that he has to make right now. When the poet is going on the road, he is encountered with a fork that is there in the road. Two roads are there. Now he has to take either one. Why? Because and be one traveler long I stood. He's standing over there at the intersection, at the juncture, and he has to make one choice because he is only one person. He cannot travel both, and that happens to us also. Once we make a particular choice, we cannot move it back. We cannot rewind it. We cannot rewind time back. Time has a unidirectional flow, right? You understand this? So the poet cannot turn back, go back, and again take the other one because he had just made a bad choice. So that the poet cannot take, and that is why the tone or the mood over here is a bit sad. I will be talking about it. The poet is having a bit of sad mood over here because he can take only one path. So let's talk about your MCQs that you have in your board examinations. You can take only one. There is only one right choice, and if you have two right choices, you have to select the most correct one. That would be your answer. So in some of the choice MCQs that you have in your different subjects in board examinations, you may have two correct choices, but you have to choose the most correct one, right? And once you have marked it, there is no turning back. Once the answer sheet is there in the hand of the invigilator, you cannot do anything, right? So this is just a small example which I am giving to you. Now he is contemplating on the repercussions of each and every path that he can take. So there are two paths over here. So he is talking about the repercussions. He is looking ahead. So just read this particular line and look down on as far as I could. We also do that. Suppose I want to start a business. I have some money with me. I want to start a new business. And with this new business, what I do is I evaluate, I anticipate my risks, I anticipate my profit, I anticipate my strength, and I anticipate my weakness. We do a SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. You will study this in class 11 commerce. So when we do a SWOT analysis, SWOT analysis, then the same is being done by the persona over here. He is contemplating what will happen in the future, but we don't know exactly what will happen, and that is what he is conveying through this particular line, that he is looking as down and as far as he could, where it bent in the undergrowth. So there is a bend in the road. That means it signifies what? It signifies that there are some unforeseen forces, or there may be some unforeseen circumstances that may come into play when he has taken a certain path. So there are always uncertainty, there is always risk in every decision that you make. So we have to make the best one for us. What you feel right in your heart, that decision you have to make, and what is good for the society. So it may be possible that any decision which you make may be good for you, but may be bad for the society, right? So you can be involved in some illegal activity, but then it will be good for you but bad for the society. So you have to contemplate that also. Let's come to the second verse. They then took the other just as fair and having perhaps the better claim. So he took one and left the other one. So he basically chose. So here he has made the choice. And on what basis he has made the choice? He thought. Just focus on this particular paragraph. This is very, very important, because this is again the undercurrent, and most of the students, they miss out this particular point. What is happening over here is just as fair. This one particular road which he has taken is just as fair as the other. Both of these are having just the same path. But the first impression that the poet has is that one is having more traffic or more footfall, the other one is having less footfall. So he chose the one which was less traveled by. This is the first impression which we get from these lines. And having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Now, how does a path want wear? How does it want to be trodden down upon? So path, here the poet is using personification. The path is being personified to want something. The want is a human trait. Want is a human personality. So we are giving it to a particular path. रास्ते को हम personify कर रहे हैं, right? So because it was grassy and less traveled by, so the first impression that the poet has was that this particular path which he has taken or which he has chosen is less traveled by. There are not many people who has trodden down upon this path, and he decides to make a bold move over here and goes on it. But the second impression that he gets is from that will be clear from the next two lines. Though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. Now when he starts moving on this particular path, he notices one particular thing, that these two paths are similar, and the footfall, the people who have chosen both the paths are near about the same. So it seemed that this one was a bit different, but in reality, he realizes after moving on this particular path that these actually were the same. This is the nostalgia coming in, when we make some decision in our life. 5 years, 10 years down the line, you have made a particular career choice. You decided to choose, let's say, PCM or non-medical. You decide to do engineering, right? And then you wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. Suppose, let's say, for example, and you have taken, you thought that many people, they don't do it, but when you enter into that field, you see there is a great deal of competition. So you realize then that yes, at that particular point of time, I had made this decision on the perception that this particular path was less traveled by or taken up by very few or the daring ones. But in reality, there are many other people who dare, and that is the reality in the world. In the next paragraph, the penultimate paragraph, what the words we have, and both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Here again, he is expressing his lament, he is expressing his sorrow in the first paragraph, but in the third verse, he is coming to a particular positivity. He is exploring a possibility that one day perhaps both paths are having the same traits, both paths are being equally trodden down upon, they have the equal amount of traffic, equal amount of people, they travel upon it, both the paths, and in leaves no step had trodden black. In both of these cases, on these particular roads there are leaves, it is laden with leaves. So we cannot figure out how many people have trodden on or walked on it. And oh, I kept the first one for another day. So he thinks that yes, someday I can come back. He explores a possibility over here, and he can take this particular path again. But he knows that this is not going to happen in reality, because once he has made a choice, so that will be a unidirectional flow in time, and he cannot come back and join the first path that he could have taken. So, but he is again, in his mind, he is exploring one possibility. yet knowing how ways lead on to way. So now he's exploring another possibility that yes, at some point of time, we don't know, behind these woods these two paths may meet or may not meet, we don't know. And we also don't know that this path might lead to some other paths and this also might lead to some other paths. And yes, that may be fruitful or successful for him. I doubted if I should ever come back. So he doubts that it is not a possibility to come back again in time and then make that particular choice again. I shall be telling this with a sigh. So he is now again in the somber, sad mood. So he is telling us with a sigh, sometimes ages and ages hence, sometime in the future, after I have made this particular choice, sometime in the future, two roads diverged in a wood, and he stood there, he made one choice, and I took one less traveled by. So he thought, this is the most catch line over here, he thought that this one was the less traveled by, he took it, and that has made all the difference. So whatever he is in reality right now, just because of this particular decision which he has taken, which he thought at that particular time would be right. So this particular poem seems very superficial, very easy to deal with, but it contains a very deep ethical meaning as well. When we are talking about so let's say some genetically modified crops or organisms, it may seem that after some time these will be the it will be the talk of the day, but at this particular point of time it does not seem right. So we are taking the more conventional path. So this poem also explores all the ethical dilemmas. It answers all the ethical dilemmas that we have in our day-to-day lives. And yes, there is some accident on the road. You decide, you have two choices, either to stop your vehicle, help that particular man to get to the hospital, give him some treatment, and then be on your way. You have another chance to be a bystander, have the bystander effect, and you can just zoom or pass by him, offering no help at all. Just because you fear that there might be some police probe, there might be some court kachari problem with you, and you don't have time for it anymore. So you don't want to help now. So these are the two possibilities that you have. When you have the possibility of being a good Samaritan, right? So we are faced with some or the other ethical, moral, or even a simple dilemma that we have. From buying a particular product to making some choices which are as serious as marriages, or we have career choices, etc., right? So we have to make that particular choice, and that makes us who we are. We are made by our choices and not by something else, right? So again, like animals that we in my previous video, we dealt with animals. The poem in class 10th. Just like that, we have many figures of speeches. The poetic diction is quite strong, and we have many poetic devices used in this particular poem. So let's get it to one by one. We have extended metaphor. Extended metaphor we have already talked about in my last video, where the metaphor is extending to one or more lines, and it is going beyond and to the extent that it becomes an undercurrent of the poem. So the road, this particular fork, this particular bifurcation, this particular juncture or junction becomes the undercurrent of or you can say the extended metaphor in this particular poem. Then we have alliteration. Alliteration we can find out just very simple. Again, we have dealt with this again and again. Alliteration, I would like you to find it out. I have marked some of them in my poem, so you can just watch my video. We have one over here, that is first for, FF. The sound is repeated, right? The next one we have anaphora. Anaphora we have dealt with, I think, 2 or 3 times. Anaphora is the first, when the first you can say word is repeated in the consecutive lines. So we have 3 repetitions over here. The first word, that is what? Anaphora. We have quintain. Now this particular poem has 20 lines. Each verse is of 5 lines each. So each verse which is of 5 lines is called a quintain. This you can remember just for your answers, and this will be giving you some brownie points. Then we have personification. I already talked about the wanting, the desire that the path has to be trodden down upon, to be walked upon. That desire is again the personification of a human desire that the path or that particular road wants. Then we have antithesis. The poem or the poet is presenting us with two diverging or two different scenarios which may or may not be opposite to each other. So that is why this is also an antithesis where where two choices we have to make which may or may not be opposite to one another. Assonance and consonance, the twin poetic devices we have talked about many times in my other videos as well. So assonance is again when the vowel sounds are repeated in one particular line, and consonance is the consonant sounds are repeated in one particular line. So let's talk about this particular one over here. This is a very, very important line. This line has all the three poetic devices. It has alliteration, that and the. It has consonants. Where is consonants over here? So that is the consonant sound. Consonant sound is T. T is stretched over here, over here, over here, and over here. So there is consonants, and assonance is the vowel sound. So A, as we have that, and then we have passing. So we have three sounds, vowel sounds which are repeated, and therefore this is assonance. Again we have one consonant that is in the form of O, though, for. These are the two vowel sounds that we have over here. So this line has all the 3 or 4 poetic devices which we talked about earlier. Then we have individualism. Individualism is the you can say the concept of an individual to explore one's own destiny, to focus upon the individual, to focus upon one's own choices, and that my choices will be my own, and the results of those choices will also be borne by me. That is individualism. Then we have repetition. Repetition we can see over here. Way, ages. That is in one line we have in these two lines we have repetition, or where one particular word in one line may be repeated closely or subsequently in that particular line. We have simile. Simile we have over here just as fair. So when we use like as in some particular to do a comparison, then there we have simile. It differs from metaphor. Again I dealt with in great detail in the last video. You can watch that and come back. Parallelism. Parallelism is there in these 3 lines. Now what is parallelism? This is new for you. In parallelism we have the same grammatical structure of consecutive lines. They are exhibiting the same grammatical structure, that is called parallelism. So in these 3 lines we have anaphora here as well, and the grammatical structure of these 3 lines is also the same. So that is why we have parallelism in this particular verse, especially in these 3 lines. So my dear students, whenever you are making any choice, be sure to be circumspect. Be sure to have a foresight of your decisions, what consequences they will bring upon, what results they will bring upon in your life in future. Obviously there will be some consequences which may differ from your perception, because there will be some external forces, external circumstances which will come into play. But don't fret upon that, because again we learned that this is a unidirectional flow and we cannot come back. We can only learn from it, and we don't know how paths may intercross each other in the near future or in the distant future. So we have to explore that particular possibility as well. So this particular poem was all about choices. Again, the questions coming from this particular poem can be based upon, they can be value based, they can be talking about a particular choice that you have to make, or any ethical dilemma which will be presented before you, and you have to find a solution for it. So again, we will be talking about I have given you some examples like that of the Good Samaritan, your career choices. So these are the 2 pertinent examples that are coming out from this particular poem, right? So this was all about it. So I expect that you have understood this particular poem, and I'll be posting some extra questions or some statement questions in my description or in the comments down below in my video. So be sure to watch out for that space. Until then, happy learning all of you, and have a great day ahead.